Good evening. This is the March 28th, 2022 meeting of the Ways and Means Subcommittee. Will all please rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call of the Ways and Means Subcommittee. Councilor Keefe.
Here.
Here. Councilor Fiore.
Here.
Here. Councilor Novoselsky is absent. Councilor Sereno. Here. Here. Council President Visconti.
Here.
Here. And Chairman Rizzo.
Here.
Here. Quorum is present. First matter on tonight's agenda is an ordinance amending metered rates of the revised ordinances of the City of Revere.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to take this a little bit out of order because we have members of the public here wishing to be heard. So I thought before any members of the council would speak on this, which I know many of you have spoke on it prior, but before speaking again, I thought I would welcome people up to the podium who came here specifically for this particular matter. So in no particular order, if you could approach the podium, state your name and address, and then if you have any commentary or any concerns or questions pertaining to this particular ordinance change, feel free to make your statements. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman, Ira Novoselsky, 53D Hone Street. And I want to, again, say in advance that I am speaking tonight as a tenant of 53 De Hone Street, in accordance with the rules and regulations of the State Ethics Commission. I have to recuse myself from any council discussion as a counselor or a landlord. So that's my advance notice for that. I do want to, before I go on to my little thing, I just want to submit the names of a couple people that have sent me support. And one lady is here right now, but she doesn't speak English. Her name is Rosa Aguilis. She lives at 217 North Shore Road in Revere. And she's in support of this motion. And again, we don't have a interpreter to speak on her behalf, but someone did ask me about it before and wanted her name mentioned in favor of this. I also have a note from Giuseppe Tomino at 215 Walnut Avenue, and he's a four-family home owner, and he also is in favor of this change. Back in 2018, the City Council passed the water rate change, and within that package, unbeknownst to many of the councilors at that time, included an ordinance change. And that ordinance change made three-family homes and below as residential homes, and in general, four-family homes and above as commercial. We didn't realize that as tenants, and the city didn't take any action on this to change it until this year, or this past year, actually July 1st of last year. We did try and get this moved in the last session, but it was kind of late. It was during election time, and nobody, it wasn't on the agenda to make a move at that particular time. There were a lot of questions, and they wanted to hold it over. So thanks to Councilor Keefe, and he resubmitted this for action. So the rate went from $16.31 to $26.93 for these homes. And we figured out there's 50 homes in this city that are affected, 30 four-family, 10 five-family, and 10 six-family. So we also figured out that the average expense, additional expense to these homeowners, and they're owner-occupied, let me reaffirm that, they're owner-occupied homes. It's not absentee landlords, someone from East Boston or Saugus or Everett or wherever. They're Revere people that live here. and it costs them approximately extra $2,000 a year. Now, this additional expense would be passed on to the tenants. So you're talking approximately another $100 a month for these tenants in the 4s, 5s, and 6s. Now, I know the ordinance reads 4, but there are people here that are asking for the 5s and 6s to be included in this. And again, we're only talking 20 homes altogether. So hopefully, this council will find it in their hearts to relieve these homeowners, residential homeowners that live in Revere, and owner-occupied, to relieve them of this additional burden. So these are the water meter rate issues, and I just hope that you folks will, I want to take pity or, have a heart to take care of these folks that are involved. So thank you for now.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to be heard? Come up to the podium. You can either line up or... Yes, we did.
Okay. My name is Annette Gold. I'm here with my husband, Marvin Gold, and we own the property at 7076 Sumner Street in Revere. We've been there, as long as we're married, 64 years. We paid residential water for at least 62 years. And then all of a sudden, you changed it to commercial. That has been our home. It's not commercial property where we have tenants. We got maybe, including us, 10 tenants in the whole house. But unfortunately, with the increase of the water, I can't raise my tenants because of COVID. I had to work with them because their hours were cut down, and they really couldn't afford it, so they were paying me piecemeal, but they did pay me. And this year has been a very big hardship because we heat the entire house with oil. And if I told you what it costs for January and February and March, I'm just living there as a homeowner. It's over $10,000. So, and my water bill has escalated because they don't use a lot of water, but it has escalated. It's costing me another $500 a month. So between that and the oil and all the expenses, I can't get it from the tenants. So I've asked, the times that I've come up, I've asked you to change it back to residential, take me off commercial, and there isn't anything else I can do. I understand. I could have had someone come up and speak regarding your ordinance and your condos and all the things that are going on all over the city, but I'm not interested. I'm here just to ask to be changed back so that we can afford our expenses and live there without having this big burden. So again, I appreciate your consideration. That's all I can say.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to be heard? Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, Michael Bunick, 142 Brad Street, 144 Brad Street, Ave. So approximately 13 years ago, my wife and I purchased this home. It's a 4-family unit. It's 2 and 2, 2 on each side. In doing so, we've been living there for the past 8 years, and our son has been living there since the day of purchase, and now resides there with his 3 children and their mother. The other units are occupied by a total of 3 other people. So we have one half in 144, which is 2 units. It resides 3 other occupants total. Since purchasing the property, our taxes have doubled, as well as our water bill has doubled. And now, on top of that, our water bill, we are now seeing an estimated increase of an additional $2,160 per year. It's hard enough now to be able to afford a home and try to leave something after we pass to our children other than debt. There is no reason I can see or imagine that because I bought 4 units instead of 3, that I would have to pay more than my multiple neighbors in the city that have 3 or 2 units and only pay a residential rate. So I ask, please, treat me and my neighbors the same and just charge us a residential rate. I do not consider myself or my wife real estate investors. We are a couple of adults trying to provide what we can for our family and ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else?
Hi, everybody. My name is Geraldine Gargiulo, and I live at 72 Victoria Street, which is part of a 5-family unit. It's a townhouse, row house type of construction. We've owned this property since about 1939, and I currently have the 4th generation living in this household. Revere has been a part of my life since I was born. That was 76 years ago. And for the first time in my life, I can honestly say I cannot afford to live in the city of Revere. And I find that very disheartening. With everything that's going on, with all of the buildings that are being built, with all of the rents that are being secured, the little people have got to find a way to survive. My water bills have doubled. My taxes have doubled. My house insurance has doubled, probably all within the last 5 years. The most obvious increase is the water. I have an old house. It was built in 1909. It costs a fortune to keep it up. There's constant repairs, constant maintenance. I try to keep a nice home for the tenants that I have, and I try to keep the rents low. I have one tenant there since 1996. She's a single woman with a niece living with her. She's worked for the Jewish nursing home in Chelsea for the last 20 years and is about thinking of retiring. And I would hate to have to ask her to leave because she can't pay the rent. It breaks my heart, and I really hope you consider this. And while I'm 5-family, I would also put in for the 6-family. I mean, I think when you have that few homes in the city of Revere that you can accommodate, I would ask that you think about it strongly and vote to include the 4, 5, and 6-family units. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to be heard?
Hello. This is my very first time, and I'm kind of shy. Okay. I have many, many times paid and paid and paid, complained, brought papers up, et cetera, et cetera. Every time, well, water's running all day long. How could it be running all day long? Everybody's working except me. So, to get to the point, I received a letter from a woman that runs the water department. I forget her name. I should have brought the letter, saying that there was a defect, that someone should come out and look at the meters. I waited and I waited and I waited. I said, something's wrong. So I opened up the door where the meter is, and I saw a certain item that shouldn't have been on the floor. So I said, no, something's wrong here. So I called up. I said, I'm demanding someone to come and look at this. They came, let me see the letter. I showed them the letter. After that, I said, no, I'm not going to pay because this is a problem here. So 2 weeks later, everything was fine. I paid the big bill, $1,500. Every so many months it was $2,000. I'm a widow. I don't work. I do a lot of volunteer work for Revere too. So anyway, right after that, I paid. Now I get monthly bills. I went from the quarterly to I get monthly bills now. So I've been living there since 1974. I'm a widow since 1976. So I just feel that something should be done.
And I'm sorry, your name and address again?
Elena Fabiano, 646 Beach Street.
646
Riviera.
Beach, okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much for that.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I hope I can explain myself correctly.
Thank you, no, well
Okay.
understood.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Good evening. My name is Phyllis Garino. I live in on 800 Broadway in Revere, Massachusetts. My home is over 100 years old. It's been passed down through the generations with the original people, family. I have a few tenants, but the house needs a lot of maintenance. It always has. I keep up with it beautifully. The water bill has doubled since they've went in and changed the rate on me. And of course, you know, the oil, the electric, insurance, everything's gone up. Some of my tenants, she's been there for over 17 years. I can't keep asking her for money. She hasn't got it. I mean, they can't give me what they don't have. And I don't want to lose my home because of, you know, the bills that just keep going up, and they just keep going up, and it's like I'm drowning. I wish you'd consider, you know, changing. I don't know how my property is considered to be commercial because there's only 2 electric meters, 2 gas meters, 2 of everything, and I pay all the bills.
How many families is it?
There's myself and 3 others. The house was divided, my grandparents divided it way back when. But since it's old, there was no way to change all the wiring and piping and all that stuff, so I pay all the bills. I pay everything. They just pay rent, and I pay the oil, electric, gas, the water. And it's getting out of control. I can't do it. It's getting to the point where we can't do it anymore. I can't ask them to leave. They couldn't afford to live someplace else, you know? So I don't want to get to a point where they can't pay me because I keep raising them, and then I'm really doomed. So please consider it, would you please? I mean, all of you, I'm asking you, please, to just give us a little mercy here. All right?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Giuseppe Tomino. I still reside at 215 Walnut Avenue, apartment 1. And I've been living there since 1976. So I have something to say about this, but I'm not too good on reading. So if you don't mind, Mr. Iyer is going to help me. That's why I write myself.
Sure you want to pick him?
Okay, this is on behalf of Mr. Tomino. This is the Revere City Council. This letter is to place a complaint by the city management regarding the fact that the consumption of water rate will change from residential to commercial. This matter I find very offensive for the residents of Revere. It isn't right, because the residents use water for hygiene, dishes, cooking. They do not use the water for any type of commercial use. It does not matter if it is a single or multifamily home or condo units. It should not be called commercial and should not be paying a commercial rate. This is absurd. I reside in the city of Revere and own a 4-family home which I occupy as my primary residence. Residents do not sell the water. Why should they be paying a commercial rate? I'm asking the city to listen to the residents of Revere, to write into law that at least the property owners who use multifamily homes as their primary residence should be paying a residential use.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. Anybody else wishing to be heard? Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Joe Muniton, and I live 66 Franklin Avenue, and I own the property. I buy my property in 2017. After I worked 3 jobs to get the property, and at the beginning it was really difficult for me to pay all the bills because all my tenants, they low income, they work in Boston, so I cannot raise the prices or the rent. So
How many families is the
it's
house?
four units, but they're small apartments. They're 1.5 bedrooms. I live there with my wife and 2 kids. My kids had disability, so my wife had to take care of the kids, so she doesn't work that much. So I'm the only one who pretty much work in the house. So I'm asking to please consider that because we want equal for everybody, you know. It's not fair for me to charge all the rest of the residents for residential water, and we have to pay commercial, and our apartments are very small. And I want to buy a bigger for my family, but I cannot afford it with the high prices right now, and we live in a very tiny apartment. So thank you for listening.
You're welcome, thank you. Any other residents wishing to be heard?
I'm sorry, I want to speak for the subject, and she went into her water
About the
bill.
water meter, yes.
Right. She also has a 4-family dwelling. And I don't know how you consider whether it would be residential or commercial. I would think if it's commercial that you'd have to provide parking for your tenants also, but she doesn't. She has 4 units there, and her water bill has gone to the roof. And she doesn't want to raise her rent because she has a couple of good tenants and they're going to leave. So, and to replace them and to charge a lot more money, she's not going to be able to rent these units for a lot more money. So, you know, she's came here tonight, good thing I came with her, to ask you to please consider switching that back. You know, I mean, at some point, I'm going to inherit that house. So with all these astronomical things that are going on, do I just get rid of the house? You know, she's had it for 60-something years. So she's asking that you please consider that also. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other residents? Lou, you gotta turn the, there you go.
Hi, Louis Mario, 60 Stour Street, Revere, Mass. Been there since 1959. Seen a lot of changes there, guys. Not for the good either. But I'm here. Yeah, okay. I'm here to state the same thing as the rest of the people. We're all following in the same categories. We all have tenants. They're good tenants. You don't want to go up in their rents. You feel bad. And you pay for it yourself. So, I mean, how many times can we do it? Not many. So please consider it. You've got enough people here. All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Lou. Any other residents wishing to be heard before I open it up to councilors?
I already spoke.
Is this on? I'm not
Yes.
sure. Thank you. Hi, so, good evening, everyone. So this ordinance change basically is taking the commercial rate that is being billed for water on a 2, 3, and 4 unit residential building of any type that people live in, and giving them the single-family water rate, which, so basically, they'll get a lower water rate in a 2, 3, and 4 unit residential building. So, okay, just a couple of things I want to mention. You know, a single-family homeowner and seniors in the city who live in single-family homes, they don't get rents, they don't collect rents at all. They don't get any income but what they have. And you can see how their income has been diminished with inflation, and especially this year. There's no one to repair their apartments or their homes. There's no one to do their snow removal or anything but themselves, or they hire someone. They can't write it off. You can write it off as an owner of a rental. You can write things off. But the single-family homeowner cannot write any of this off. So this is all on the shoulders of the individual single-family homeowner, and the seniors are what I'm concerned about in the city. So the seniors have been looking for a water rate break, and they didn't get it. They haven't gotten it. The seniors need this. Now, before you start giving it to other people, I think the seniors, they need to come first. I'm sorry. You need to think of these seniors in the city first, especially if they're living in a single-family home and every burden is on them themselves. They can't just go out and get another job. Many of them can't. And for other younger seniors, they might have other things going on in their family. They might be taking care of other sick family members. They might be doing a lot of other things that they have to do. And they may not be able to go out and get another job either. So I really want you to consider that first. This really, you know, this hurts the seniors. Their water rates have jumped and jumped and jumped, and there's no relief. So you really need to take care of them first and give them a water rate break before anything else. They can't collect rents, they can't write anything off. They pay for shoveling, snow blowing, cleaning of the yards, everything. They can't do it anymore. So please consider them first. That's what I ask. And I think it's only just and fair. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary Jane. Any other residents wishing to be heard? Or anyone else wishing to be heard?
Hi. This is just impromptu, I'll just add my 2 cents. My name, Judy Reckworth, 37 Francis Street. So this is impromptu, and I just thought I'd just tell you of the bills that I have to pay, and since my mom passed on, how they have gone up over these years. So I pay a hefty tax rate. It's a 4-family house. 4-family house, I've evicted tenants 3 times that were found by apartment finders that were unscrupulous. So I went through the hassle of going through Chelsea Court and evicting people that were writing bad checks and stuff. So since my mom's passing, I've inherited it. And I grew up in the building in the good old days when Revere Beach was different and Shirley Avenue was different. But the amount of bills that I pay for property taxes and house insurance and the water bill, and it's not a commercial property, and I don't even want to know how modest the rates were, when my grandfather owned the building, years ago. But and I can't go up on the tenants' rates because I can barely afford it, and it's just a hassle, and it would be a huge help. It's not a commercial property. I'm just one person, single gal, paying a lot of property taxes and water bill to the city and house insurance to Vermont Mutual. And if I need to sell it, if it's just too much for me, I will have to do that and just bail because it's just not worth it. It's not worth it if you have tenants that can't afford, they lost their jobs from last year, they're on disability, and it's just a hassle out there. There's so many unscrupulous people, you don't want to know about it. So just thought I'd add in my 2 cents worth. I live up on Francis Street above Franklin Ave. And frankly, it's getting really annoying. There are people on the side of Hawkins Street that like to party on the weekends. How many times do I have to clean up glass for people that just are carousing late at night and they drink, they drop their glass for me? Again, it's just me. I just pay, it's not modest rents either. They're very below market rents. And so then I have to peruse and bail and clean up all the glass. The people that sold the house next door have caused problems with not closing their lids properly. So truly, I don't want to go over it. It's just a nuisance.
Right.
And I'm going to have to bail because it's just not worth my peace of mind. So please consider on everybody's behalf. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody else wishing to be heard before I open it up to councilors? We do have some other items on the agenda too, so I'm going to open it up to the committee members first, and then after that, any other councilors wishing to be heard.
Mr. Chairman, can I interrupt for one moment? Can we have Mr. Viscay come up and speak about it as well?
If he wants to speak, I asked if anyone else wanted to speak.
Thank you.
I was just trying to be respectful of everyone's time, but thank you, Rich Viscay, CFO, 281 Broadway. Just to paint the complete picture, I've been doing some work on what this means to the water rates and such, and for 4-unit buildings, I would say the average is about $2,000 in variance between a residential and a commercial rate. The 5-unit buildings bring it up to about $2,500, and the 6 families actually is about a $4,000 discrepancy. So we took a list of all the 4, 5, and 6-unit buildings in the city. It's over $500,000 of variance if you included everybody, non-owner occupied. But just to make it clear to everybody, I'm not here to advocate one way or another. I'll let you decide. But these dollars will have to be recaptured through rates ultimately. We full cost recovery and water. So whatever cuts we make to certain class of property, that will be redistributed to everybody. And it's not as if we can just lower the amount of water and sewer money we collect to balance the budget. So just to be crystal clear, that money will be redistributed and the rates will be set accordingly. Like I said, I'm not here to advocate for one way or another, just so everyone has a clear picture, and certainly happy to answer any questions on that.
And just so we're clear, you're saying all 4, 5, and 6 families comes up to $500,000, but you don't know what percentage of that is owner occupied?
I was asked to do 4 families at one point, and I vetted out 37. Again, we'd probably need a better vetting system, but if you think of owner-occupied 4 families and there's 37, it's about $75,000 that would be redistributed through the rate setting. As you go up, again, I don't know how many more owner-occupieds are in 5 and 6 families. I would think that it's less. I would think 4 families is pretty typical, being that 4 families is usually a residential purchase when you're purchasing it through regular purchase. 5+ is commercial, but again, there certainly could be people who live in 5 and 6 unit buildings as well, but I think that number would shrink down. Can certainly find that information out, but just want to make sure the council has all the information they need to make this decision.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to call on councilors. Councilor Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We just to kind of encapsulate a lot of what has been happening tonight and being talked about tonight, but also just to bring a little bit of a preview of the last year and a half. And, the goals have come up here every single meeting we've had. I think we've had upwards of 10 in this subject alone. And of course, it went through the end of the year between subcommittees and meetings. Yes, about 10. This is 2 already this year. We went through the process. We were very close to the finish line of granting this for the citizens of Riviera, for the owner occupants of Riviera, and probably the estimate of under $100,000 with the owner occupants. And I think we all felt comfortable about that. What had happened was, as we all do, and I get it, everyone wants to change and add and do this greater, bigger project, which, yes, ultimately water rates in the city are certainly important to everyone, not just the multifamily unit owners, the single-family homeowners, seniors. There is a senior, Mr. Viscay, if you can confirm, there is a senior water program, correct? Okay, but so there is a water program. But yes, there certainly could be more done. I get it. There certainly could be more done. I put this in last year. It went sign die because we just weren't able to come to the finish line. We have an entire year to do it this year. I think that we owe it to the citizens of Riviera to do it in a timely fashion, to try to not change it too much. Yes, we can maybe make the amendment to 6 again, but when we try to do this overarching program, it fails. So if we can just be cognizant of any changes, outside of maybe the one or two, to get it done. If we don't want to get it done, then tell the residents to their face and say, hey, listen, we don't believe in it because we don't want to pass it off to anyone. I believe in it. I have probably 2 of them in my ward, but I believe in it for the entirety of the city. And I think that we should make this happen, and we have a responsibility to act. Simple as that. Okay? Thank you.
Members of the committee, Councilor Fiore.
Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, with respect to the water rates, I have a simple solution. Maybe we should stop circumventing 2.5 and funding water through water department employees, water department clothing, and various water department expenses. So the MWRA bills us one figure, and then the administration bills at a different rate. So if we want to save people on water, we should stop circumventing Proposition 2.5, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councilor. Any other members of the committee wishing to be heard? If not, Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to say for the residents out there, stay here. Don't give up hope. We'll resolve this for you. And I just want to say, for every speaker that came up here, everybody said, I do not want to raise rents to my tenants. And I think that's very admirable. I really do. I am for you. I am not against you. I think this whole council is probably, well, I shouldn't speak for the whole council, but I think we're all, we all have it in our hearts to help you. I think we should help the little guy, especially what's happening now with inflation, gas, the war, maybe a recession coming. You guys need to have help. So I need to have help. I'm in a single-family house, early senior, and I pay through the nose. So I pay through the nose. So I understand, and I've lived there all my life. It was my family home. They bought it in 1945. So I totally. So. Okay.
Okay, let's keep it to the council right now.
I'm just going to say thank you for coming up here, and we have your back. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. A member of the committee, Councilor Sereno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Visquet, because I wasn't here in 2018 when this got changed, although a lot of my colleagues were. What was the reasoning in 2018 to switching? What was the methodology behind that? And what did we do before then?
Council, much like yourself, I was not here either, so it was previously changed before I came. So I don't know what caused it. I'm not sure why the council voted it, but that's why I'm up here, just to kind of give the facts. But I do want to clarify one thing. We certainly do not circumvent Proposition 2.5 through our Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund, Councilor, and you really shouldn't say that to the public without getting more
Well, maybe you can
information. Thank you very
elaborate.
much.
Maybe you want to elaborate on that. Why the MWRA? Why the MW?
Mr. Chairman, I believe I still
Stand
have
up
the
and be a
floor.
gentleman and answer the question.
I think I still have the
Mr. Chairman,
floor.
I'd ask for order, and I have a right to ask the question. Explain to me why.
Councilor
Mr. Chair,
Fiore.
I believe Councilor Sereno still has the floor.
Well, I have a question.
Whatever
Council
you like me
Sereno
to
still
do
has the
here.
floor.
Mr. Chairman.
A councilor has been called out by name. He's asked for a point of personal privilege. I'm going to turn it
Well, I
over to
have a
Councilor
question.
Fiore.
The MWRA bills the city at one rate, and the city bills the taxpayers at another rate. And then, inside of the cost of that are for vehicles, employees, clothing, et cetera, et cetera. Am I correct, Mr. Visquet?
Yeah, you're correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
But that does not circumvent Proposition
Well,
2.5, nor does it a full cost recovery is collecting all the direct, can I finish? All the direct and indirect costs around the water and sewer department, including the cost of running general government for billing, for printing, for administration, for debt service. So it's not just we get an assessment for water and sewer
Okay,
from
but-
MWRA and pass it
But
through.
you
So
can say
just
it-
don't, so just you.
Don't tell me, oh, wait, I've been here.
I will tell you.
This
I
isn't
will
my
tell
first
you.
rodeo.
I
It's
will
not my
tell you.
first rodeo, sir.
Well, don't be disingenuous again with the
It's
people at
circumventing
public.
2.5, sir. When you're
No, it's
billing them
not.
through the
No, it is
water
not.
rate,
No,
when
it
you're
is
already
not.
building them by
No, it
tax
is
rate and
not.
making the
No,
necessary
it is
cuts.
not. You're up here playing politics, and
No,
you're not being,
don't tell
you're
me
not being
about
truthful.
politics. Nobody knows politics better than your
Mr.
boss.
Chairman, can we get some order?
Mr. Visquet, let's keep it to the facts. Let's not talk
Well,
about
he's
who's
not giving
playing
facts,
politics.
Councilor Rizzo, so I'd like to clarify it so people
You
are clear.
bill
Thank
one
you.
rate, you charge another.
Okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Councilor Sereno so we can finish his question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Viscay, I apologize. I lose track of the years, and I forgot that you weren't here either in 2018. But, Mr. Chairman, through you to the members, I would say, first of all, I do want to help these people. And a lot of them are seniors who have been here generations. These are revered people who have been here for years and years. These are new families as well who want to raise their families and you know, their disabled children and whatnot. And we should be looking at this, but my only concern is how do we determine what's fair? We have folks here with 4 families. We have a lady with a 5 family. So that's where I'm at trying to figure out, I want to do this for these people, but I also want to do it in a fair way that's fair across the board for owner-occupied residences across the city.
Mr. Viscay, just for some clarification and just for my own edification, you weren't working for the city in 2018?
I started in January, so I was halfway through the fiscal year.
Okay, in January 2000, okay, because I'm trying to back, and it seems like
Seems
you've
much
been in
longer,
that.
Council, but I've only been here 4 years.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Council President Visconti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While you're up there, can you tell us, I know you gave out a $500,000 number that would have to get redistributed to all the taxpayers as well. All right,
The rate.
the
Yeah,
rate,
base,
right?
yeah,
That
yeah.
rate would get distributed and would affect everyone else in the city as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that
Yeah,
what you're
if you
saying?
just imagine cutting 500,000 and then and grossing up the rate so that you
Agreed.
recapture that throughout
Okay. And-
both residential and commercial.
And
yes.
that was based, that $500,000 number was based on
All.
owner
Nope,
occupied?
All 4 through 6.
4 to 6s.
Yes.
Do you have a number? Because that's a big number.
Well,
A $500,000 number to get redistributed is a big number, whether it's including investment properties. That's all, not just singling out owner-occupied properties, right?
Right.
Okay, so is there a way to figure out what the cost would be for just owner-occupied 4 to 6? Do we have that number yet?
I researched the 4 because that was asked of me. It sounds like Council Novoselsky may have looked at the 5 and the 6. He said it would be about 10 and 10.
Well, I'm
So
not
again-
asking Councilor Novoselsky.
No, I understand.
You
I'm
know,
just giving it for a point of reference. It's $2,500 for a 5-family and about $4,000 for a 6-family. So we just have to find out how many of the 5 and 6s are owner occupied. Again, I'm taking the average,
Yeah,
so I'm
no,
not.
and I
So
have-
if there were 6 units, 10 times 4 would be 40,000, and then 2,500 times another 10 would be another 25,000. So may bring it up to about 120,000 or so for owner occupied. That's a rough guess.
That's a rough estimate off the top, and I appreciate that. And I too want to assist, everybody that is owner occupied as well. It is creating some confusion, whether it's 4 to 6 and whether we do it at 4 or whether we include the 5 and 6 units. That's the dilemma that we're having. I know the ordinance on the floor, correct me if I'm wrong, only states 4 units. Is that correct?
4 families, that's
4
it, yeah.
families. Okay. All right. Thank you. That is it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Council Morbido.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to thank everyone who spoke tonight and who gave their testimony. I don't want you to think your voices are not heard. You took the time to come up here and speak to each and every one of us. Though I'm not a voting member of the subcommittee, I am a voting member of the City Council. Just for clarification, so passing the current amendment would be only on 4-unit multifamily houses. So a 4-unit multifamily house would be on the tax roll as residential if it is rented for residential use and it is owner occupied. So through you, Mr. Chairman, to the committee, is there an amendment to be made to 6-family through you, once again, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the committee? Is there an amendment to include 6 units of owner occupied.
It can be amended during this hearing and then voted on accordingly. So right now, all we're voting on is 4 families. If it's amended, the council takes it up, then we would take a vote on that amendment.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the committee members, I am not sure I have the authority to amend a motion that is currently in this committee as a non-member. So that is up in the air.
The committee could amend it in committee and then report it out as such to the full city council if that's the will of the committee to do.
Yes,
Mr.
Councilor
Chairman, I would like to offer that amendment
Okay.
to change the language to up to no more than 4 units. 6 units, pardon me, 6 units. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
I have to call on Councilor Silvestri, and then I'll come back to you. Councilor Silvestri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Visquet, would it be possible, if we did accept this amendment, to redistribute the financial cost only through commercial development? Commercial rate?
Yeah, I would suppose so. You would just, again, the total amount that needs to be raised has to come in through residential and commercial. We can certainly adjust only the commercial portion of that to make up those dollars, yes.
Thank you.
Councilor Fiore.
That's a very good point offered by Council Silvestri, but I think we also need to take into consideration that it isn't always banging the taxpayer. It's not always banging the taxpayer, Mr. Chairman. There are other ways to do this. It's called a budget cut. You know, let's start with thousands of apartments everywhere. The taxes keep going up. $100,000 jobs. What's a director of inclusion? A $100,000 job created. Well, we can start cutting out those types of things. $30 million in the American Rescue Plan Act. So you need to stop spending. So, you know, we get it. We know what's going on in City Hall. Maybe Mr. Visquet could tell us what that new position, a director of inclusion, does, on top of the others that we see every week.
I'm sure we can discuss it during the budget process, Councilor, but right now I'm just here for the water rate discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I suggest that we make the necessary cuts, and this is the Ways and Means. I'm fully willing to do that at the right time. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, just before, I think everyone's had a chance to speak. We've got several more things on the agenda. I don't know if we're going to get through them all. But I just want to say this. I empathize with everybody who has spoke here tonight. But I also recognize that those costs get shifted off to other people, right? So, you know, what really has struck me here tonight is that a lot of these older 4, 5, and 6 families are our older, long-standing, long-time residents of the community, which makes it very, very difficult for me personally, because I do know that these costs get shifted over to single family, 2 families, and 3 families. They're gonna essentially pay for any cuts that we vote on tonight. But I also recognize, and from your perspective, all of these new apartment buildings that are going up, but you as small-time owners of property are not getting any breaks. You keep getting hit and hit and hit. And while there's a lot of people, like I know this one resident here, talks about, well, you have the ability to raise rents where a single family and 2 family, at least a single family anyway, doesn't really have that option. A lot of 2 families are still the old in-laws with family members there, and it's really not practical if it's an aging parent or uncle or aunt, grandparent, whatever it might be. It's not as practical to be able to go up on those rents as it might be. So it really is a very, very difficult decision for the councilors to have to take, give to one group and pass those costs on to another. It really, as a councilor, I'll speak for myself, it's a no-win really situation, because a vote we take here, if it's positive, that means that every other resident is going to be increased to offset this. And I get the cost of fuel, I get the inflationary cost that we're all dealing with, but those costs are real to every single member of our community, whether they live in a one-family, whether they live in an apartment, whether they own a four-family or a six-family. So it's a difficult vote, but it's been on the table here for a while. So, you know, I think we got to pass. I think right now, what we have to do is put this to a vote. We'll report it out tonight.
Point of inquiry, Mr. Chairman, through you to Mr. Fiscay. Is it possible to hold off on amend the ordinance so the 5 and 6 families can be calculated into next fiscal year?
Well, to be honest, I'm assuming that all of these changes will take effect with fiscal year '23. I mean, we've kind of set the budget and set the terms now, but again, I would imagine that any changes would be for fiscal year '23 budget. I may be wrong.
So
but
that's
my-
even more mind-boggling, because why can't we take the appropriate steps and calculate what we can need and budget for it now?
Well, we've already set the budget, Counselor, so we're 3/4 of the way through fiscal year '22.
I'm sorry, fiscal year '23.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, same thing.
Yeah, but when does the budget come before the city council?
Oh, no, yeah, you can do it in plenty of time for '23. I thought you were talking about the current fiscal year. Yeah, I would imagine this.
Fiscal 2023.
I would imagine this is for fiscal year '23. And yeah, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
When the city council acts on the ordinance goes into effect, and the administration will be required to make the necessary budget cuts, adjust their budget in order to accommodate this. That's my position. So once the city council votes on the ordinance, it becomes law.
I suppose when it becomes effective, Counselor, but that's up to the council's decision.
Point of information, Mr. Chairman. With all due respect, the city council already voted for the fiscal 2022 budgets. Therefore, it would only be right to fit it into the 2023 budget.
The budget is irrelevant to this. The ordinance is the ordinance, and the administration makes a decision what cuts they want to make, or do they want to bang the taxpayers? Simple.
I don't know what you mean by bang the taxpayers. That's not my lingo, but I don't want to get it back and forth, but I think it's
All right, why don't we, you know.
logically and
now we're-
fiscally, to be responsible, we need to fit it into next year's budget. Unless, if you're going to implement something now, are we going to retro everyone now as well?
Yeah, I think there's some things we definitely would need to work out, assuming this passes. As I say, I understand that it's a small number of properties, but it's a dollar amount that gets split amongst other ratepayers. I mean, it seems to me, Councilor Silvestri had mention of, maybe passing it along, instead of passing it along to the 1 and 2 families and 3 families, if there's maybe we can, look for another option as to where to pass these costs on to that might make it more palatable for somebody like me who doesn't want to go after or not necessarily go after, but to have to just, take a vote here that is automatically going to increase costs to 1 and 2 families. Because that's essentially what we're doing, unless we have a change of track that we're going to pass these costs on to another entity. Now, I certainly don't want to keep kicking this down the road, but does the council want to investigate that before taking a vote here, where we might be able to push the cost on so it's not going to the 1 and 2 family homes? It's not that we don't want to support what you want, but we have to be cognizant, not just of the 40 or 50 or 60 properties, but the thousands of other properties out there that people are struggling day to day with their costs as well. Is everybody in
President?
agreement to maybe just?
Just a point of information, I think my taxes were the highest out of 1, 2, and 3. It was $250 for the year. I think, and I'm in a single-family house, so you're right. You're right. Let's explore this, definitely.
I think this isn't an emergency. Chances are this would not go until the 2023 budget, as Mr. Fiscay had alluded to. But I would like to see if there's a way to if we're gonna offset the cost, let's designate that cost to those who can most afford it and not put it on the backs of the single family and two family who are still paying that same. I know my oil bill doubled, just overnight it seems, my oil bill. So we're all dealing with those costs. And if we're gonna shift some costs, I wanna be sure we're shifting it to the people who can most afford it, not the people who can least afford it. Yes, sir. You're just gonna press it.
Oh. If I may, I know you had mentioned talking about us folks that have multifamilies that have some or majority family living in these homes. What about the two families, the three families in this city that are all 100% rentals and only done for investment purposes? I could name a half a dozen myself, and I'm sure there's a hell of a lot more, because that's just in my neighborhood. So to say that you won't want to put it on the ones, twos, and threes, there's a huge amount of property in Revere that is not owner-occupied whatsoever.
But sir, if I might say, and I'm not disagreeing with you, I know there's rentals out there, but I know for a fact, I'm not guessing, there's more one, two, and even three families that are owner-occupied than are non-owner. So, I mean, now we're going down, we want to work with you all on this, but we're trying to do it in a way that, we're not shifting it over to those who are already struggling also. I get, look, you guys have made very compelling arguments, and I came in here quite honestly, really thinking to myself, 4 family and above, you guys basically bought these are investment properties, you happen to be living there, which is great, but, you have the ability, unlike someone in a single or a two, in many cases, to derive some income from from those properties.
Right.
So, and this I'm guessing why whoever put this forward probably decided to make them commercial rates. We want to work with you on this, but I'd like to know more, maybe work with Mr. Viscay on, if we're going to give this discount and shift these costs, where are these costs going to go? So we're not trying to belabor this. We're not trying to drag you up here again another 5 times. But rather than just take a vote and say, oh, this is it, and then say, oh, maybe we could have done this, I'd rather take a little more time and look and see if we can have a definitive place where we can shift these costs. I don't know, is everybody in favor of that?
Yes.
We've been talking about it for a long time now. Like I say, I personally don't want to belabor it. This is my first meeting chairing this committee about this issue. I think if we just do it right, we can all vote in good conscience, so the majority of people make out, benefit from this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay?
Thank you,
All
everybody,
right.
for listening to us.
So we're going to keep this on the table. We're going to lay on the table.
One more thing, if I may, Mr. Chairman. If you vote on it tonight and you want to pass on those costs to the commercial, include it in the vote tonight. Just like Councilor Silvestri said, include it, tell the mayor to do it.
Yeah, no, well,
Tell the mayor to do
I'd like
it.
to deal with Mr. Viscay on this, okay?
Yeah, so-
We're going to lay on the table. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Calendar item number 2. Yes,
Can I
ma'am.
just say one more thing?
Yes.
The amendment that includes the 6 family, can you vote on that tonight?
We're not voting, we're going to lay it all on the table. When it comes back out, it's already been amended to up to a 6 family.
That's all I want to know.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. Well, you know what? Let's take a roll call on the amendment for 6 family.
What do you mean?
This is for 6 family owner occupied, correct?
Yeah.
Putting both 5 and 6 in.
You're putting both 5 and 6 in the ordinance change?
An amendment is on the floor to include 5 and 6 families.
Okay.
Owner occupied. Okay, so we'll put that in, and then we'll have a little more time to figure out the cost and how we're gonna shift this if we have, we can figure out who's owner occupied, how much it's gonna be, and where the shift is gonna go. That's what I would recommend.
Well, okay. Does that amendment have to go tonight? Since in the meantime, we can get a more definitive number of what that cost is gonna be. Right. Okay, if you guys want to vote on it, we can vote on it. Don't matter.
I mean, this is not to adopt it, this is just to include the 5 and 6 families, correct?
Okay, all right.
Okay, that's all we're doing.
So
Madam Clerk?
So this is deleting the word "for" in the proposed ordinance and replacing it with the word "six" in all instances. Counselor Fiore? Yes. Counselor Keefe?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Novoselsky is recused. Counselor Sereno?
Yes.
Yes. Council President Visconti?
Yes.
Yes. And Chairman Rizzo?
Yes.
Yes, the amendment has been passed, approved in committee.
Thank you very much. We're going to try, actually, is there, okay, we're just gonna go a little bit over here to take up a couple of other ones. We have the communication from the auditor relative to the ARPA fund grant summary. I think that's just for acceptance. Is that just for acceptance, or was he looking for?
That was just informational, no vote required.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah, that was just, if you had any questions, I'm happy to
Okay.
answer them. You can certainly defer that, Council.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, on that, I would just ask that we have Mr. Viscay appear before the next Ways and Means Committee meeting to address that. I think it's going to have to be several outings on that.
Yeah, I'm happy to come to any of these Ways and Means Committees to take up any of these that got delayed, Council, so whatever you like.
Oh, okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. We have a motion here by Councilor Silvestri that the mayor be requested to provide all first responders in the city of Revere with $500 from the ARPA funds for their committed service during the COVID-19 pandemic. Councilor Silvestri.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So included in the ARPA fund breakdown and regulations that Governor Baker put out, anyone that worked through COVID-19, including first responders, could get, I believe it's $13 an hour up to $25,000. I think $500 to our first responders, although they might think it's not enough. I think it's a little something to show the respect that in the work that they've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors wishing to be heard? Councilor Fiore.
I don't know that it's possible, but I agree with the motion wholeheartedly. $30 million, excuse me, Councilor, $30 million in ARP funds, I think we can amend it to $1,000. They put their lives on the line when we were all locked down for the police and the fire department. So I would ask to be amended to $1,000.
Thank you very much, Councilor. Any other councilors wishing to be heard? Seeing and hearing none, there's an amendment on the floor to vote this out of subcommittee. Councilor Silvestri had voted a $500 appropriation. Councilor Silvestri voted for a $500 appropriation. Councilor Fiore has amended that to $1,000. Mr. Viscay.
All right, just to be clear, I'm not exactly sure. I mean, we've accepted that grant. The grant dollars sit within the administration. We do have a process by which these requests are vetted and recommended out and then appropriated as such. So just want to make it clear, I'm not sure if any action would actually bind this vote to be given out. So I just want to make it clear. I mean, I think the motion has merit, but we have a process that's been sent out with regard to all the requests for spending the ARPA funds, and I just would hope that we can respect that process.
I understand that we can't allocate, we can only cut, but there's a motion on the floor, and Councilor Fiore has amended it to $1,000. And quite honestly, thank you, Mr. Viscay. Quite honestly, I wholeheartedly agree. When you think back to the beginning of this pandemic, nobody knew, all our first responders, nobody knew what they were dealing with. And I know that out of a lot of the money that was given to the city as a result of the pandemic, I remember back quite some time, it was before I returned to the city council, there was a lot of outrage by some over some of the raises that were proposed using COVID money, and you know, it was heavily contested. These are our first responders that are out there day in and day out, not knowing what they're walking into. They never took a day off, when we didn't know anything about this potential virus. So I think it's an excellent motion by Councilor Silvestri, and I support Councilor Fiore's amendment. If the administration wants to comply with it, or, I know that, by virtue of any vote of this city council, then you would have our blessings with that. So with that, if you could take the roll on the amendment for $1,000 to each and every public safety first responder.
On the motion in committee, as amended, Councilor Fiore.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Keefe.
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky. Absent. Councilor Sereno.
Yes.
Yes. And Council President Visconti.
Yes.
Yes. And Chairman Rizzo.
Yes.
Yes, the motion as amended will be reported out favorably to the full city council.
If it's okay with President Visconti, I'll take up one more. I don't think it's going to take very long. It's on a motion by Councilor Fiore that the mayor provide the city council with a list of city employees with take-home vehicles along with job titles, residential addresses, and copies of mileage logs. Councilor Fiore.
I think it speaks for itself. We're just looking for information so that we can make proper decisions in the committee as we go on through the budgetary process. I did want to have the calendar item, Council Order 2252, appearing as 3 on the list, addressed this evening. Or is it something you want to put over to the next Ways and Means Committee?
No, if we're all done with that, I don't think we need a roll call on this, that you're just looking for a list of all employees. I think the motion pretty much spoke for itself when it was given, but, we'll take it up here in committee unless there's any objection. All in favor, all opposed? So ordered. And let's take the last one here, that the mayor be requested to appear before the city council as to why taxpayers are being charged 3% with a credit card. Councilor Fiore.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to have the mayor appear. I know Mr. Visquet has talked to us about this in the past. However, I'd like to know the mayor's position on it. The ratepayers are getting hit with a 3% fee when they pay their taxes by a credit card. When, for example, the pizza shop owner who sells a $15 pizza, he has to pay the 3% fee. So, as we've said all along, taxes going up, apartments being built, $250 million budget, and I know the argument from some members of the council has been and will probably continue to be, this is going to be passed on to the other taxpayers. And again, that's an administrative decision and an oversight responsibility of the council to make the necessary cuts in order to put these things in effect. We can't just keep taxing and spending. You need to give the ratepayers a break, Mr. Chairman. We need to stop creating these $100,000 a year jobs. So the people that are paying with credit cards, 18, 20%, are likely the people that can't afford to pay their taxes. So what happens? They don't pay, and we lose interest on the other end. And I think we all can realize it's quite probable a recession coming. And I think that in the interest of the public, we stand up, we make the necessary cuts, and we give the people a break. I don't think it's right that we're charging 3% to use a credit card. And I'm certainly willing to make the cuts, and I would implore my colleagues to stand with us on it.
Councilor McKenna.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think it's fair either. I just think we have so much going on right now that it's not fair. I think people are living paycheck to paycheck. They don't have the cash. They're paying through with their credit cards to keep their houses so they won't be in, foreclosure or whatever it is. I just think we shouldn't be charging 3%. Right? If you want to stop for a period of time, that's fine with me, but we shouldn't be paying, people shouldn't be paying a fee because they're paying with a credit card, so they're getting penalized. And like I said, some of these people, they just can't afford it. So that's my position on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Sereno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we spoke about this at length a couple of weeks ago. And my issue is kind of twofold. I understand that some people, like Councilor McKenna said, are choosing to pay with their credit card because they have no other means and because they're living paycheck to paycheck. In those cases, those should be taken and the city should be working with those residents. However, for the vast majority of people, and I stand by this, I'm sorry, the vast majority of people who use a credit card do so because they choose to do so. they do so because they would like to get the credit card points, or, you know, it's just easier than a check, than using a check or cash. You can pay by check and there's no fee. And I think it's unfair to, and I understand Councilor Fiore saying that, you know, I don't think the city should be paying at all on these 3% fees. Because at the end of the day, it's a choice for some, for most, to use a credit card versus other means of payment. So I don't think everybody should be on the hook. I think that's actually fiscal irresponsibility, to put the entire tax base on the hook because you're choosing to pay by credit card. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Any other councilors? Councilor Keefe.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I tend to agree with Councilor Serino. I appreciate the motion, but I've yet to speak to a resident that pays with their credit card outside of the convenience, and they tell me straight out, I love the points, and I get it. And I work in the hospitality industry. Unfortunately, we do. Everyone passes on the charge. They just pass it on in the form of a different bill. So yes, some small places maybe eat it, but no, it's fixed into, it's added into their cost of doing business. Some way down the road, they say, hey, listen, we have to charge $2 a slice, $20 a pie, whatever it may be. They factor that in. And some places do charge you directly if you have a certain charge. But I would not be in favor of removing the 3%. If there is a resident that is struggling, that is literally using their credit card, and they have no means to get by, I would implore them to come work with the city. I would imagine the city would work with them. I would hope they do. And I think during the COVID pandemic, we waived fees. But I think just a soft cost, if we took the current credit card payments that happen now, it'd be in the area of $300,000 to $400,000. If people knew that and said we're going to get the points and not to pay for it, it'd probably be $1 million next year. And I just don't think that that's anything we can come close to affording. So, thank you.
Councilor Cogliandro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. Visquet, this isn't a fee that the city puts on. This is a credit card fee, correct?
Yes, Council. Basically, where most people who purchase any items with a credit card, that vendor is taking a discounted amount as they get it. We're not allowed to do that by Mass General Law, so we can do two things. We can pass the fee along as a convenience fee. I think that's a kind of a poor term. I don't think it's that convenient, or we can absorb it. We've absorbed it during the pandemic because it was difficult to come to City Hall. We wanted to try to have some relief. It did cost us over $700,000 in the year and a half that we did it. I think Councilor Keefe's right. As people get more in line with the ability to pay with a credit card, I think those fees would go up. And essentially, we'd have to budget that and pass it on to all the taxpayers. So I think it's a fee for service. I think it's proper that we pass it on to those people who use it. I mean, whether there's a program put together for people who are in need or there's means, I'm sure we can talk about that particular thing. But right now, if we budget $500,000 for credit card fees, you know, theoretically, that's $500,000 that's going to come out of some other pocket. So I just want to make that clear. We did it during the pandemic. I personally like when they pay with credit cards. The money gets right in the bank. There's not a lot of room for error when we get that. We get it immediately, but it proved itself quite costly. Thank you.
Thank you. Council President,
Chairman,
I'm sorry.
That's no worries. I just want to say that, you know, I think Councilor Keefe hit the nail on the head with businesses. I own a business here in Revere, and we have an option to pay by credit card, and that there's a 3.5% charge that goes towards the customer, and people do have the option to pay it. You know, we get a lot of checks, we get a lot of cash, and that's something that's here in this community. Hundreds of people, hundreds of payments a month. So I just wanted to share that information. Thank you for the leeway.
Thank you very much, Councilor Cogliandro. Council President Visconti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a tendency to agree with Councilor Serino and Councilor Keefe on this one. While I respect the motion, because I think for the most part it is a convenience for our residents, and I think that being said, I don't feel the city should pick up that fee where it's a convenience fee, pretty much. And like Mr. Visquet said, if in fact we have some residents that are having some difficult times, I encourage them to reach out to the administration and see what they can do, because I firmly believe that they'll be willing to work with them. So on this motion, I wouldn't be able to support that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilor Morabito.
So I think any fee is not convenient. I think if you get a parking ticket, it's inconvenient, right? So you go to pay a parking ticket online, you're whacked with this fee. In addition, I had a constituent come up to me last week. They ran into Liberto's at 6:59. They shot me a picture of the ticket. And literally, come on, they couldn't have waited 1 minute for them to get pastries, and they were ticketed. And I understand that whoever was issuing the ticket, they were going according to what the law is, but how inconvenient is that? I don't think any fee is convenient. I understand when you're talking about paying by credit card, people do want points, right? But what is the solution? I guess I'm asking Councilor Fury, through you, Mr. Chairman, what is the solution to eat up those costs? Should we, the city, should we eat them up as a city? Or should we ask the third-party company that hosts the website to pay for them?
Well, they just.
Or we're going to look at elsewhere?
They just issued a whole bunch of stickers that are useless. But no, I think the city council has a financial obligation. If I might, through you to the city clerk, how much did the city council recommend be cut from the fiscal year 2022 budget?
I would have to go back and look at the meeting minutes.
Because it's not all just vote on what the mayor puts up here. You got to be willing to stand up and take the position and make the cuts. You can't sit here while they continue to spend us into oblivion. That's it, you know? And I agree with you. Enough with the tickets. You know, I get people telling me they're getting ticketed because the bumper of their car is hanging out of their driveway. Something's seriously wrong in this city. Something seriously wrong.
You know, and I agree with.
I thought we were talking about credit card fees.
But in the last hour, we're eating up $800,000 between giving out. I think I still have the floor, so I think in the last hour we just the city's eating up $800,000 between giving out $1,000 to first responders, amending to 6 families. If we do this, if we take away the fee and we eat up that, we're up to over $1 million probably.
$250 million budget.
Mr. President.
Right, okay, you know what, we're gonna have to wrap this up because we need to get to our regularly scheduled meeting.
Mr. President, just a point of information, if I may. I know you want to get out of, move on, but this motion, I respect what, Councilor Fury's looking at, but all this motion says is that the mayor or the city auditor appear before us to explain, and that's what he's doing. There's not really a vote here that we have to take to make it happen.
No, I think Councilor Fiore wants the mayor to appear.
And the city solicitor at this point.
Well, I come before you on behalf of the mayor, and I'm sorry if you're looking for the mayor every single ways and means. You're probably going to get me. I speak on behalf of him, so.
So the mayor won't appear before the city council?
I'm not saying that. I said I'm here on behalf of the mayor.
I just want to vote on his motion that the mayor appear.
Mr.
I mean, that's what
I'm sent here on behalf of the mayor.
Says.
I'm here on behalf of the mayor. I just want to let the council be aware of that.
Well, the mayor needs to step up and be a big boy and appear. Call the question, Mr. President.
Just 1 second,
All right,
please.
Councilor Silvestri, then we really need to get going here. This is
Mr. Chairman, do I still have the floor?
Wow. Council, we're going to have to wrap this up.
So I don't have the floor?
No, just if you could. Okay, I appreciate it. This is for President Visconti, not necessarily for me. He's waiting to run his meeting. Councilor Silvestri.
Mr. Chair, we just sat here and we said we cannot distribute funds onto the rest of the city for 4, 5, and 6 family homes. Now we're going to sit here and say that we're willing to redistribute the 3% fund that a credit card company puts on the city onto the remainder of the tax base. And I don't understand how we can sit here in one breath say we're not willing to do it, and the next breath we're willing to do it. So as much as I respect Council Fiore's motion, I just don't think it's feasible to spread this across the tax base.
Councilor Silvestri, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing with what you said. The motion that he put in that was sent to my committee is that the mayor appear before the city council. If nobody wants to hear from the mayor, vote it down. If you want to hear from the mayor, vote it up. That's what I think, Councilor Fiore. Am I correct in what your motion states?
That's correct, and I'd like to see the solicitor added to that as well.
Okay, as amended, the motion as amended, roll call, please.
Roll call on the motion as amended. Counselor Fiore?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Keefe?
No.
No. Counselor Novoselsky?
No.
No. Counselor Sereno?
No.
No. Council President Visconti?
No.
No. And Chairman Rizzo?
Yes.
Yes, the motion fails. Did not receive a favorable
Okay,
recommendation.
that will conclude this meeting of the Ways and Means Committee. I appreciate the council's attention to these several matters, and I appreciate Council President Visconti for allowing us to run over by almost 20 minutes here. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to get started with our regularly scheduled meeting. Thank you very much.